Hello my friends and fellow VEDSies, apologize for the space. My shooting space, aka my bedroom, is kind of a train wreck today, so I'm coming to you from the Bolton Wallace Conservatory. Today I wanted to talk about something that I loved as a kid, the American Girl dolls. Don't get me wrong, I didn't grow up with the kind of money to have like several dolls. However, I got the catalog from a very young age and I poured over that thing every month like it was the Bible, honestly. I was so obsessed with that catalog and the dolls. And eventually I got my doll and I would go to American Girl events in the area and I'd get the books from the library and I would buy them. I loved American Girl dolls. And I know it's because of my sample size, but I don't have a lot of friends who share that love, so I thought I could make an American Girl doll video. Specifically, I'm doing a tier ranking of the historical dolls that existed when I was a child, because it feels unfair to judge the ones that came out when I was like a teenager or, God forbid, an actual adult. The wiki can only give me so much in that regard, and it doesn't seem like the best idea. However, I can judge the dolls that were out when I was a kid, because even if I didn't have the books or have the doll of a certain character, I know what their deals are, and I know what the main plot points are, because even if I didn't have them or didn't read them, I knew somebody who did at the time. And we're going to go through in chronological order, starting with Kaya. Here's the thing about Kaya. I never met anyone who had a strong feeling about her in any direction. Like, even girls I knew who owned the doll didn't particularly love Kaya. It was either they're part Native American and so a well-meaning relative bought them Kaya, or they were trying to be completionists and so they had her as well. I'm sure that there are people who like Kaya. She's been around for decades now, so it stands to reason that some people really like her, but I've never met them, which isn't a great sign and means that she is going in the D tier. Next up we have Felicity, our American Revolution girl. I had a couple Felicity books. Felicity was definitely a very solid entry in my American Girl book lineup. In particular, I remember one about a scientist who comes to stay with the family, and eventually Felicity uncovers that he is actually a loyalist spy. That one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Felicity is a solid entry overall. I don't know. I didn't have a ton of strong opinions about her. I liked her, but I didn't love her. Maybe it's because I was never a horse girl, but that feels kind of harsh. I don't know. She just wasn't a favorite of mine, which means that she's going in the B tier. Her best friend Elizabeth, on the other hand, I actively hated. I found her very annoying. The details are fuzzy because it's been over a decade at this point since I read a Felicity book that featured Elizabeth, but she just irritated me, and I don't think it was the pink. I never went full anti-pink, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. I just think I found her annoying, and the fact that she's the only one I actively disliked means that she has to go in the F tier. Next up is Kirsten. Kirsten is my doll. I was born in Minnesota, she moved to Minnesota, and so I immediately liked her for that. I also had a minor Little House phase, and so that part of it was always very appealing to me, and I really loved the way her stories were laid out. There was a really nice amount of drama in them, but it never felt like it was unrealistic. In particular, her Christmas story gets pretty high stakes, but in the best way possible. And yeah, she's my girl, which means she has to be A tier. Next up is Josefina. Josefina's not like Kaya. I've met people who loved her, and I can see the appeal. Josefina has great outfits. She had a game on the American Girl website that was like a marketplace thing that I loved, even though I was really bad at it. But I just never vibed with the actual story of her character. I know it works for other people, so it's not a quality thing. It just didn't resonate with me. So I'm gonna go with a solid C tier. Next up is Addie, and here's the thing. I could not get my hands on Addie books back in the day. I don't know if the library just straight up didn't have them, or if they were higher demand than other books, or a mix of both, but I didn't get my hands on Addie until I was in college. I found it and was like, well, let me flip through and see. Oh my god, Addie's story is really fucking good. It's probably the most compelling. Unsurprisingly, the girl who escaped slavery has an incredibly compelling story with a lot of pathos. But like, oh my god, obviously Addie is A tier, obviously. Up next is Samantha, and anybody who knows me knows that I love this time period, and yes, absolutely, aesthetics-wise, Samantha is A tier. I don't know, the story, the vibe wasn't there. I found her kind of annoying. I don't know, it also might just be that the girls who had Samantha as their main doll were always really mean for some reason, at least the ones I knew. And so that might be bleeding over, but I never really loved Samantha, even though aesthetically incredible. And so she's gonna be another C tier doll for me. Nellie, though, I did like. Another one of my childhood phases was my Annie phase, and so Nellie definitely spoke to that to a certain extent. Especially if you think about the Samantha movie and how Annie-ish it gets at certain points. She's a poor, poor sweetheart and deserves the world, and I'm so happy she gets it in the end. B tier. Rebecca came out when I was starting to get a little too old for American Girl, but I was still very much into it. And you might understandably think, Tessa, that's the theater kid doll. I assume you love the theater kid doll. And that logically would make sense, but she always sort of had a bit of a diva-ish vibe. I'm not sure how accurate that was to the books, but certainly in her attire and artwork it seemed like that. And while we love the representation, I never vibed, and so that puts her as a C tier. Next up is Kit Kitteridge, the queen herself. We literally have no choice but to stan. I mean, come on. Didn't everybody who read anything about Kit just kind of want to be a reporter because of it? I mean, that couldn't have just been me. And she was a tomboy. And it was the Great Depression, which bled into my Annie phase again. And she solved a mystery at a production of Mackers. That book was actually my introduction to The Curse. And I mean, I don't say the name still, and so you can guess it might have had a bit of an effect on me. But yeah, Kit, obviously A tier. Ruthie, I didn't mind too much growing up. She was a little annoying, but I didn't think it was that bad. However, I asked my friend Andra to weigh in when I started making this, and I figured anything that she very drastically differed with me on, I would make some adjustments. The only thing she sent back was that she didn't like Ruthie. Therefore, she's ending up in the D tier. We've reached World War II time, which means we get Molly, the OG, the queen. Let's be real, I think when most people think about American Girl, their mind kind of just automatically goes to Molly. I feel like her stories are super solid overall and really set the tone for the franchise. And aesthetics, she's great. I love the character. A tier, A tier, A tier. However, I also really love Emily. I was a kid when The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie came out, and I saw that, and I also loved Bedknobs and Broomsticks, so the idea of World War II London was definitely something that intrigued my childhood brain. And in addition, feeling like the people around you are nice, but you're practically a different species than them, was very relatable to me. As was lying about how much you practiced your instrument, because, whew, boy, did I fudge some piano lesson numbers. I enjoyed Emily a good deal. B tier. Last, we've got our 1970s characters, starting with Julie. Honestly, people are very rude, I think, when it comes to the 1970s outfits for Julie and Ivy. I think their outfits are cute, or when they're not cute, they are accurate. And I like Julie. I'm obviously not a jock, but her choice to be the first female athlete at her school on the basketball team is such a solid one. I think that was a really compelling choice for a deal for a 1970s character on top of her parents' divorce. I very vividly remember the scene where she had messed up her arm, and so it was in a cast, and so she was supposed to give a report about a memory of some sort, and she was allowed to use a tape recorder because obviously she couldn't write it. And then at the last minute, she decided that she wasn't going to lie about it and was going to talk about her parents' divorce. And so she gave a presentation to the entire class. I thought that was a very moving scene. Julie's a very solid entry, B tier. And the very last one is Ivy, Julie's best friend. Quite frankly, I just liked Ivy. I thought she was an interesting character, I thought that her family was fun, and I loved getting to go into San Francisco Chinatown, and I liked watching her try to balance the Chinese and American aspects of herself. I thought it was a nice story. So I'm gonna put her in the B tier with Julie. And so that is my American Girl doll tier list. Admittedly, I am excited and nervous to hear what people think, but I think it's a pretty fair spread. And so with that, and an apology in case you could hear the pianos going that whole time, my friends and fellow VEDSies, I'll see you tomorrow.